Okay, well, it's a pleasure to have with us here today Nilüfer Koç to speak with us about many things in relation to our series on self-determination here at Peace in Kurdistan. And without further ado, let me begin by asking you, Nilüfer, could you please tell us a little bit about recent developments in the campaign to delist the PKK?
Well, thank you, Jeff, for this opportunity, and thank you for the peace campaign in Kurdistan to organize this very important meeting. The campaign was declared by the initiative Justice for the Kurds. It's the international initiative which was founded in November last year. And 29 academicians, politicians, people who are involved in trade union, artists, and those who got peace Nobel prizes amongst them 29, they decided to start a campaign for the delisting of the PKK because they see the ban on the PKK and listing of the PKK as a continuation of the injustice against the Kurds. And their main argument is that delisting the PKK would be a great contribution for peace in Kurdistan and also Middle East, because the conditions or political circumstances in Middle East depends also to the solution of the Kurdish issue. And all the commitment made by Turkey, arguments which have been used by Turkey as a PKK as a terrorist organization, is used as a pretext to occupy northern Syria, northern Iraq. So the Turkish fascism is using the listing of the PKK as a pretext for its policy of expansionism in the region. And to stopping the Turkish fascism, they said it's important to raise again the importance of the listing of the PKK. And also there was a very important report prepared by the British Parliament in last year in June. They also say that the Erdogan regime is using the PKK to destabilize the country and the region and to cut all of the democratic rights, civil rights in Turkey. So by using the PKK as a pretext. And to Erdogan's policies also affecting the European politics. That's why those people said the PKK issue or the listing of the PKK is not any longer a problem of the Kurds, as it has regional and also global effects. But on the other hand, many people say, well, the PKK contributed to the security of the humanity when they defeated the Islamic State in 2014. And also the paradigm which is mainly led by the PKK, the paradigm of coexistence of the people, the freedom of women, social ecology. And these are, however, these principles of the paradigm are practiced in Kurdistan, but can be also contribution to global problems. So that's all the reason. And I've seen in this campaign that many people, even those who have been taking more neutral position in the recent years, they have changed their mind. So let's say liberal circles. And I've seen also some of the conservative circles are supporting this campaign. So it's not just a campaign led by left movements or left thinking people, also those who belongs to the liberal or conservative wings. This is the new quality of this campaign. And I was very surprised to see that even some priests have signed the campaign, feminists, social ecologists, trade unionists. Well, I would say all the colors of in any society representing societies are now taking part in this campaign, and this is great.
Excellent, very interesting. Now, what is the relationship between the campaign to delist the PKK and the campaign for the freedom for Öcalan?
Well, as you know, Öcalan is the founder of the PKK and the main the key figure in the PKK. And both are victims of injustice, the PKK through the listing and banning. And Öcalan is punished to the solitary confinement in the 22 years after his international abduction in 1999. and both don't have any legal rights. Particularly the case of Öcalan is now, since last year, was raised in many meetings in the Council of Europe, in the European Council's Committee for Prevention of Torture. So they all say the circumstances on the prison island are not acceptable. One can say the injustice against PKK is also continuing in different forms against Öcalan. And I think both are punished because both led the Kurds to revolution. PKK was practicing Öcalan's ideas, his paradigm, and both are very harshly punished now because of their fight for the right to self-determination for the Kurdish people. They brought the Kurdish back to their roots. And through the struggle in the last 14 years, the Kurds gained self-confidence again, national consciousness. And they brought the Kurds to the peak that they become hope during their fight against Islamic State. Then more and more people worldwide learned a lot about the Kurds and their heroic resistance, but also their intellectual and academic contribution to global problems through Öcalan's paradigm. And I think both are punished because of these achievements. So I think Öcalan's case has priority because it's issue of life and security of a very important person, not just for the Kurds, but for the whole region. Any change in the prison island of İmralı would also lead to new political process in Turkey. So as a pre-step for dialogue and peace for Turkey, and I say explicitly Turkey because Turkey is the main actor of destabilization, and not just against the Kurds, but also against North African countries, even until to Malaysia, I would say, by using the Islamic ideology as an instrument for expansionism. So I think change of Öcalan would also lead to talks about the delisting of PKK. So the priority is, of course, the campaign for freedom of Öcalan, and also the campaign of the PKK, of delisting PKK, would lead to founding a new ground for political talks, because however, the PKK is listed as a terrorist organization, but be ensured that all of the states who are involved in Middle East has de facto connections with the PKK. Because wherever you touch Middle East, whether it's Iran, Iraq, Syria, or Turkey, so the Kurdish problem is a vital issue of all these states, and these are the key states of the region. And because of that, so all of them have to be in dialogue, whether directly or non-directly, so they are in connection with the PKK. So the campaign will bring it to the official political agenda. So let's say, make it legally, make it politically. The practically happen de facto status should turn to official political stance. This is the main aim of the campaign, I would say.
Very good. Now you've mentioned the paradigm, the new paradigm on a couple of occasions already. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. How has the Kurdish movement come to rearticulate and redefine the principle of self-determination in relation to the new paradigm and project of democratic confederalism?
Well, after the paradigm which Öcalan created after his abduction, beginning with 2000 until today, he was encouraging the Kurds to give up all kinds of the nationalistic ideas as a part of national liberation struggle. So all the terminologies we have learned in the past from the 70s, like the terminology of nation or national liberation, so he gave them all a new content. So he changed the word to democratic nation, which includes the coexistence of different religious groups, professional groups, ethnic groups. There's a different definition of nation. It's not that what Lenin said or what is described in the UN UN papers, and also the national understanding of nations mostly practically based on one ethnic group, or one, sometimes it's moving to racism also. So he has said this would lead to homogenization of societies, which are very heterogeneous and diverse. So self-determination means for the Kurds means including all the components who are sharing the common land with the Kurds. It's a wider form of self-determination, and for this purpose, the idea of pluralism in social and also politically, you need a new model, so which offers all to be autonomous by keeping their differences, but taking consensus on common principles. Let's say one principle all of the diversity have to be, for example, recognition of women as the full component of societies, or respecting different people of different political understanding or religious groups, offering them all the right of autonomy. Self-determination include all forms of autonomies of all components of any societies. This is the idea. And democratic confederalism means for the liberation of each group, whatever these are the Kurds, who are really in the center and the dynamic of the whole practication of the paradigm. So, however, the center are the Kurds, but self-determination include all the people of Kurdistan. So I wouldn't say just self-determination for the Kurds. And for that, Öcalan said, well, what can be done is to look to reject the idea of nation states, which is based on the idea of former definition of nations. Instead, implementing a new form of democracy without state, without centralization of power, because if you are organizing the diversity, you have to reject centralism. Centralism would mean that one of the component will describe or will define everything. So, and democratic confederalism as a political model of self-governing is rejecting centralism. Mainly, it's an organ of decentralization, which offers all components the right to self-determination in autonomous organizing. This is the new Kurdish discovery, according to Öcalan's paradigm, and it was achieving its peak by practicing this in Rojava particularly, and formerly also in Bakur, Kurdistan, and Turkish occupied part. So, and we have seen that most of the components in Kurdistan, whether Rojava or Bakur Kurdistan, even in Bashur or Iranian part Rojava Kurdistan, the people have taken over this alternative, because it can be I think it's currently the only alternative for all people who are threatened by wars, conflicts, particularly in Middle East, because it's a diverse region, culturally and socially very diverse region. And the states who want to cut this right to self-determination of any of the components, they're using mainly nationalism as a form of manipulating of the people. And the other one is raising patriarchy through sexism against women in our region, in Middle East. But also you see the growth of sexism and nationalism everywhere in the world, since there's a systematic crisis of capitalism and is deepening day by day. As a result, the states are more trying to manipulate societies through nationalism, through improvement of right-wing parties, for example, in Europe. And also sexism, discrimination of women is becoming more and more a problem, serious problem everywhere in the world. And I still think that what we experience in Kurdistan now can be by showing these models, the implementation of these models, a way of alternative for others who do believe nationalism and sexism is not for the benefit of societies.
Very interesting again. So could you tell us, just to change course a little bit, could you tell us a little bit about the role of Germany in relation to the legal persecution of the Kurdish freedom movement?
Mostly the people say the reason why Germany was the first state banned PKK in 1993 is because their relation to Turkey, which is one hand right, because it has historical roots since the end of the Ottoman Empire until today. Germany and Turkey became, let's say, partners in military partners. And Germany was one of the states helping the Turkish nationalist movement before the creation of the Turkish Republic. So there are deep-rooted alliances between both, but based on military cooperation and intelligence cooperation. And the other thing is, after the Second World War, when Germany was defeated, so the role given to Germany was then, from character, the German state was always against any kind of socialist movements. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 90s, when they truly believed that nobody will ever again ask for socialism, particularly in this particular time in the 90s, in Kurdistan, the uprising starts. So the Red Star, which came down by the fall of the wall in Berlin, was taken over by the Kurds in Berlin. So there's also one ideological reason, and this was said also by Öcalan in 1994 he made an interview in 1994 and said there's also ideological reason why Germany is explicitly against the PKK. And I think it has something to do also with the realization of Germans' dream to become a power in Middle East, because in the First World War and the Second World War, they could not achieve this. But still, this dream is alive, and we see even the new government, when they came to power, the first thing what they did was looking to Russia as the hostile force. So continuation of the former dreams, and I think one part is also having being after the dream to become power in Middle East, because Germany has much money in the European Union, and it's a very important economic power in European Union, and they have all the instruments for becoming a new power in the European Union, but also outside of the European Union. And they want to keep these things calm, and want to control the Kurds, because through their partnership with Turkey had offered them, the Ottomans opened them gates to Middle East, and they do believe that even with the current Turkish state, Germany could follow their interests in Middle East through their partnership with Turkey as a strategic partnership. And whatever is harming Turkey, let's say the Kurdish struggle for freedom, it's also harming the German interest in Middle East. And the other point is, of course, there are nearly 2 million Kurds living in Germany, and most of them are organized and have sympathy with the PKK. I think the ban 93 was an attack or threatening the Kurds because it was a time of uprisings, and also the Kurds in Germany have been becoming part of the uprising, supporting the Kurdish struggle in Kurdistan itself, and also being active in diplomacy for bringing awareness for the right to self-determination, and also discovering the hidden partnership between Germany and Turkey. Also explaining why German state at that time have been committing or being guilty for the genocide against Armenians in 1915. So these are all parts which have been raised by the Kurds in their policy and diplomacy. And I think this is the other reason why Germany was the first state following the order from NATO, doing this by free will, saying, well, I will take over and help my partner Turkey. Whatever, and since 93, I say this is a German state policy, not a governmental policy, because since 93, there have been several governments. The Green have been in power in the past, the Social Democrats, the Conservatives, but there haven't been any change in the ban of the PKK. Instead, it's getting more and more worse for the Kurds. Several hundreds of Kurds have been punished. Thousands have been rejected to become the citizenship. Thousands could not find jobs in Germany. So, and all the times they have arrested many Kurdish politicians with the accusation being member of the PKK. So we can say that German state is continuing this, but I see they can't continue with that because they have done everything And also, for example, the murdering of the former Swedish president, Prime Minister Olof Palme in 1986. Germany was using this to accuse the PKK, and for that they opened the court cases against several PKK figures in 1987 in the so-called Düsseldorf processes. And they spent millions of German money, at that time German mark, to punish these senior key figures of the PKK in these court cases by accusing the PKK to be part of the murdering of Olof Palme. But after 36 years, last year, the Swedish government said it was not the PKK. And by this, the argument went into the empty corner, so I would say.
Okay. And how about relations with the United States? What have been the main consequences of the military collaboration between the SDF and the U.S. Armed Forces? Do you see there to be any chance that the U.S. will support the political recognition of the autonomous administration of Northeast Syria? And if not, why not?
Well, let me add that last week also in North and East Syria, an initiative called the Initiative of Free People declared they will run also the campaign of delisting of the PKK, because Rojava is still a target of Turkey because of the argument that the PKK is there. And by saying this, the US helped to Turkey, must help Turkey, because the US also banned the PKK in 1997. So Erdogan always says, yes, we have a common enemy. I do my part, you do your part. So, but I think in the recent years, the US policy understand that Erdogan is using this argument for expansionism, and by this, Erdogan became also with his strategy a threat to the US policy and to Russia and to other states in the region. So I think many of the states are now questioning Turkish stance regarding PKK. And on the other hand, Öcalan was spending 20 years in Rojava, in Syria generally, and most of the Kurds who are now implementing the model of democratic confederalism or the autonomous administration, these people have been taught by Öcalan in the 9 years and 8 years. So you can't cut the relation between Öcalan and the people in Rojava and the Kurds in Syria. And I think the US also needs to find a way to rethink the ban of PKK, because particularly after the defeat in Afghanistan, so the only place where they can stay now currently in Middle East is Rojava, where they don't have the problems. And on the other hand, the US they always assure the world they would prevent any further upcoming of terrorist organization like IS, and they have seen that the Kurds are the only power who could defeat such kind of organization in organized struggle. And I think contrary, I think they see that not the Kurds are the power of destabilization. Instead, contrary is Turkey destabilizing every places in Middle East, particularly in Syria. And I think all the arguments which have been used in the last 40 years that say that the Kurds and the PKK issue of security, or that they are looking for separatism, dividing Syria, dividing Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. So we now see that the opposite is happening. Turkey is now rejecting the borders which have been drawn in 1923 by the Lausanne Treaty. Turkey is trying to occupy northern Syria, northern Iraq, not the Kurds and not the PKK. And this is very clear. So the Kurds are not separatists, but Turkey is going to reject the sovereignty of the states. And I think this makes clear what is the problem. It's not the PKK, it's Turkey under the regime of Erdogan's fascism. So it's disturbing for all of them. And I think we are now I think the process shows that if not today, but sometime in the future, in the near future, I would say the US is forced to rethink, because the main catalysator and main energy giving to the Kurdish struggle everywhere in all parts of Kurdistan is the paradigm of Öcalan and also implemented by PKK. So you can't talk about the Kurdish problem without the PKK. So I think this is known by the US and all other states. And also when you look in the program of in the constitution of YPG, they also say they accepted the paradigm of Öcalan. So it's clear politically. So, and whenever you see mass movements in North and East Syria, they're all carrying the flags of PKK and Öcalan. So the people are clear on the side of PKK and Öcalan. So millions of people. And I'm sure now it seems like that millions will now participate in the campaign. And that will be a new wave to force the US to rethink that they can't overcome the PKK by having a Kurdish policy. So it's the main actor in the Kurdish policy, the PKK. So I think whatever they are in connection with the SDF, YPG, so without the power of the PKK, none of them can exist because they're all children of this movement, all results of a big movement, the YPG, SDF, and all other movements in all four parts of Kurdistan. So there's no future without PKK and Öcalan's paradigm for the Kurds and the Middle East.
And so just to push a little bit further on that, so your prediction then is that in the near future there will be formal recognition by the United States of the autonomous administration of Northeast Syria?
You see, the face of the coin has changed. So Turkish policy became a problem. It's just producing conflicts, aggression. It's disturbing, and Turkey is not acting according to the norms of the NATO. Turkey is a member of the NATO. And until today, they could use their membership of the NATO to get support from the Western countries to defeat the Kurds and particularly the PKK. But now, by occupying parts in Rojava, like in 2018 in Afrin, or in Idlib, in other places, and now since 2 years, Turkey under Erdogan is busy through all the military offensives to occupy northern Iraq, southern Kurdistan. So the American strategy towards Iraq is different than the Turkish one, or the American or Russian strategy towards Syria is different than the Turkish one. So there is no clear alliance between the NATO and Turkey regarding Middle East. There's a conflict now. And those who are really creating stabilization in the region are the Kurds. The most secure places in Middle East are Rojava, for example, and southern Kurdistan, northern Iraq. So the people and the state see, well, the Kurds are not a threat, like Erdogan is always using this as an argument. The Kurds are threatening factor in the region, which is not true. So who is really now the threat to the region is AKP-MHP government of Turkey. And so the NATO itself has no problems with Turkey, particularly with Erdogan. And that's why I say they are first. And then look, they have supporting Turkey has different forms. So the support of the NATO or the states, particularly of the UK, for example, is one of the main supporters of the current Turkish regime. So they by keeping blunt eyes when Turkey is committing crimes against humanity or crimes of war in Kurdistan, like last year in October, when they start to use chemical weapons against the PKK fighters, the organization like the Organization for Prevention of the Use of Chemical Weapons, they kept a blunt eye. And the NATO also. So this is, and Erdogan understands this as a support. So then he say, well, I have the full support of them. I can continue to commit crimes. The UN is keeping silent. The US is keeping silent. So this silence offers Turkey the opportunity to continue. But in the end, Turkey could not achieve anything. So there was a huge historic resistance by the guerrillas of the PKK in South Kurdistan, and also a huge resistance by SDF forces in northern Syria. So Turkey could not achieve. So then there must be a turning point saying, hey, friend, our partner in the NATO, we kept blunt eye. However, you are violating the norms of NATO or the Council of Europe. But nevertheless, you could not achieve. So we gave you the permission to do by keeping silent, but you could not achieve because there's a huge resistance. And I think one part of the resistance is now this campaign of delisting of the PKK. So this is growing now. And I think that's why I say in the near future, things will change because the only option Erdogan has now is to attack the Kurds in Turkey, banning, closing the pro-Kurdish party HDP, which is now on the agenda of Erdogan's regime, and also arresting much more of Kurdish politicians. There are nearly more than 5,000 members of HDP in the prisons. And killing civilian politicians in Rojava through the drones, or also in Iraqi Kurdistan using drones killing civilians. So because they could not achieve to defeat the guerrillas, the fighters of the PKK, what they do is now attacking the civilian areas. And I think that which lead the NATO and the UN and European Union and also the Council of Europe, where Turkey is member, they have to take a position. So they can't keep a blind eye anymore because crimes of Turkey are rising. It's a growing, and this is a problem for them. It's a challenge for all of them. So that's why they have to decide now.
In terms of the political situation inside of Turkey, especially given the serious economic crisis, what are the chances that the Erdogan government could fall in the foreseeable future? And what are the chances and preconditions for the recommencement of peace negotiations?
Well, it seems that after the Turkish military defeat in the last 2 years in southern Kurdistan against the PKK, and also the political defeat in his struggle against HDP, he could not achieve the goal. And that's why he is preparing now for pre-elections this year. It seems like now a few days ago, he gave also the green light for elections. It seems he can't continue like this. But before going to the elections, he has to weakening the main challenging force, and these are the Kurds in Turkey. So that's why one part can be the closure of HDP. He's preparing now this through the Turkish media to manipulate the Turkish society, the societies in Turkey, by saying that the HDP is a continuation of the PKK, and they say we don't like to have the HDP in our parliament. So this was said by him and his partner, the fascist Devlet Bahçeli. He's a coalition partner of Erdogan. And it seems that they will arrest some of the MPs like they did in 2016 with other HDP co-mayors and parliamentarians. And by doing this, he's also threatening the Turkish opposition because for the first time last year, the opposition in Turkey, the main party, the so-called Social Democrats, they rejected to vote for the extension of the bill for the Turkish military intervention in Libya, Iraq, and Syria for the first time, because they said, well, until today we gave green light to you, we supported you, and nothing happened. You couldn't achieve anything, but now is the end. So, and when you look on the opposition parties in Turkey, they're all now very brave, speaking very loud, and Erdogan is trying to weakening the opposition by punishing the HDP, which is the main opposition movement in Turkey, and the dynamic in the HDP are the Kurds, of course, so he don't have any argument to convince the people why there's economic crisis. It's a continuation or a consequence of Erdogan's wrong policy, and the people are asking. The people are hungry. Poverty is growing in Turkey. And you see there is no stabilization of Turkish lira, for example. It's it's going up and down. So there's no control over Turkish finance system anymore, because most of the state budget was used for Erdogan's dream to create new Ottomanism in the region. Most of the state budget was used for military aggression, and that's led to cutting the civil services for the citizens in the Erdogan era, and so he can't pay anymore to the people, what he do is investing in militarization, in aggression, and this led to a collapse of the internal politics in Turkey. So, and he insists to stay in power, and for that he need to show enemy, hostile force, and these are always the Kurds, shouting again such a kind of unbelievable nationalistic, racist, fascist slogans against the Kurds, punishing them, or also against the Syrian refugees in Turkey. Many of them have becoming targets of attacks in the recent weeks. So nationalism is now one of the weapons Erdogan is using. But the people in Turkey, they say this is enough. So the era of Erdogan has to go. And it seems that the opposition will get much more vote, and all the analysis made by Erdogan's companies, they say in the elections, the kingmaker would be again the Kurds and the HDP, like in 2017 when the Kurds helped to get away the municipality of Istanbul and Ankara to the CHP. It was at that time the Kurds have been the kingmaker in the elections, and Erdogan fears that again this kind of situation will come. So the further steps you will take will also depend to the resistance of HDP, the Kurdish resistance in Turkey, and the cooperation between HDP and other opposition parties in Turkey. Because it's not just the issue of the HDP, the problems are more deepened in Turkey. Turkey is challenged to change the mentality of one man, one nation, one flag, one language. So Turkey needs democracy, and the main leading force for democracy are the Kurds. So whoever wants to change of the regime of Turkey needs the support of the Kurds. And that's the reason why Erdogan, it seems, will start to attack the Kurds. And I think when the Kurds can achieve to come much more close to the Turkish opposition, including the trade unions and civil society organizations, it can put much more pressure on Erdogan to rethink the era of 2013 and 15, the era of the dialogue with Abdullah Öcalan and the PKK. So because it's the key issue of Turkey. It's not the economy is a problem because he will spend all the money to occupy 2 parts of Kurdistan, 3 parts, Bakur, Rojava, and Bashur. And stopping the aggression will help also to regain the economic power in the country. That I would say, and also accept the Kurds, the ideology of political Islam or Islamism, that also to raising of sexism in Turkey. Every day you hear news about women who are killed by their husbands or relatives, and this become a normal stand in Turkey. So violence against women, domestic violence, and also political violence against women are growing in Turkey, and that is a threat to all women of Turkey, not just the Kurdish one. So, and also the oppression against other religious components of Turkey, the Christians, the Yazidis, the Alawites, all those who are not Sunni Islam like Erdogan is, are a threat to the regime. And they all fear, and I think that's why I say when the Kurds achieve to get more cooperation or partnership or coalition, umbrella organization as a form of coalition with these all components, I think it will be easy for us to bring Erdogan down and really to create a new democratic future for Turkey.
Shifting gears a little bit, what can those of us on the anti-capitalist left learn from the Kurdish struggle for self-determination? And how best can we practice international solidarity with the Kurdish movement?
Well, the Kurdish movement shouldn't be just seen as a movement for the Kurds, because the Kurdish card is everything what has to do with the Kurds is politically. Because as you know, in 1923, when the Lausanne Treaty was signed, one of the principles was to deny the existence of the Kurds. So we are people who don't exist officially. We are not recognized legally. For that, all the powers can hunt us, kill us, commit genocide, or like Erdogan is doing, killing civilians. We can't go to any court in the world because we don't exist. So you exist when you have a state. And since we don't have a state, we don't have any rights. That's why Erdogan can do what he wants. And this is why, that's why I think the initiative Justice for the Kurds is very important, because the injustice is the denial of a people. And the PKK came as a result of this. It's not the source of the problem, but the consequence or the result of the problem. It was founded to solve this problem, the injustice of the Kurds, which is the denial of 40 million people. And when we can achieve, let's say, the legal and political recognition of the Kurds, that means that there's a need of changes of constitution of each colonial state of a Kurdistan, means the change of constitution in Turkey, Iran, Syria, and Iraq somehow is happening, but is also problematic. But changing the constitution of Iran, Syria, and Iraq, whatever they say, these countries are pluralistic ethnically, or they describe all the names of the ethnic groups in this country and accept all the languages. And this will turn, that will force all the states for democratic transition. So by doing this, this state wouldn't becoming so more problematic for the nations in the region, Middle East. And that will mean that none of the global powers who supported the states, like the NATO supporting Turkey, wouldn't have instruments. So by solving the Kurdish problem, weakening Turkish fascism, you also force the NATO to rethink, because NATO is a military organization, is the organization of aggression. So, and NATO is keeping its power through Turkey. And Turkey, the criteria of their partnership is now based in the anti-Kurdish policy, particularly anti-Öcalan, anti-PKK. So NATO is not just a problem for us, the Kurds, the people in Turkey, but is a problem for Middle East, and also, as we have seen in the results of their summit in June last year. So they described new hostile forces in Asia Pacific. You remember the summit in June declared that China and Russia are hostile forces and has to be defeated. So that's why NATO is one center as Middle East, and now they want to create a new center of war in Asia, towards Asia. But before doing this, they have to solve the conflicts in Middle East. And one of the problem is the Kurdish one, the other one is the Palestinian one. Without solving these problems, I don't think there will be any chance for the NATO to move to Asia Pacific. However, now there's conflict also in Kazakhstan, and I think some say it will happen to Turkmenistan. I think the key for the NATO will be always Middle East. And if we want to have a world without a military aggression like NATO, that's important to support the Kurdish freedom movement. And that's the relation between both. That's why I say it's not just a Kurdish problem, what we are facing today with Turkey as a partner of the NATO or member of the NATO. So by achieving this, I think we can then, the support or the solidarity is also you're helping yourself. Because the crisis of capitalist system will go deeper, and military aggression through NATO or the other militarization in any states will grow. And we can together, because the Kurds are have more opportunities or are much better organized in their fight against military aggression, support will strengthen the Kurdish power, international solidarity, and that will be, it will have a feedback also for Europe. Showing the states that alternatives are possible. There's no need for producing conflicts. There is no need to spreading wars everywhere in the world. And that's why I think solidarity with the Kurds means solidarity with your own. So this is the importance of this Kurdish struggle. However, we call it the Kurdish struggle, but these are the people now experiencing a new form of democracy in a very conflict-full region, And when you looked further in the Kurdish alternative, which they're implementing in Rojava and in other parts of Kurdistan, you will clearly see that all the practicized solutions are also responses to the global problems. Let's say the implementation of social ecology, the relation between human and nature, the relation between economy and industrialization, all parts will also help to solve the problem which is called the climate crisis, for example, the social ecology relation, and then the new ecological understanding, because we shouldn't reduce this just on environmental issues. It's wider problem, and it has something to do with our stance as human. And this is now experimented in Kurdistan, the revolution. And I think also the growth of right wing in Europe or using nationalism, we can also defeat this ideology when we look we look much more carefully in the models which are now created in Kurdistan. So the coexistence between the Kurds, the Arabs, the Assyrians, and other components, and creating social democracy. I mean, not social democracy as political parties, but creating democratic principles in the social relations. In these, the women's movement played a key role, which Öcalan says these are the real proletariats. If you want to have a democratic socialism, that can just go through the women's movement as a key struggle in any society. We shouldn't say that we in Europe, the women in the Western countries, including the US, we are free. No. However, if your state, as a colonial state, is manipulating through nationalism, it's helping by offering arms supplies to other parts of the world, then you can't be free. Where's the ethics? In the countries who are oppressive against other peoples, in these countries, the people can't be free. So by consciousness, by ethics, by morals, that's my understanding, of course, as Kurd and as a woman. And I think we can learn, because everything which is now created in Kurdistan in the revolution, the Kurds has taken over from the revolutions in different places of the world. Revolution of women in Europe, the feminist movement. I say we updated all of them in Kurdistan. The great contribution of left feminist movement, also the liberals, because we learned also a lot from them. We have transformed this to the Kurdish women's movement, the uprisings of women also in South America, or the resistance of the people in Africa. We learned for all of them, and we say now we updated them all in Kurdistan. So I always say all the heroic people in history who contributed for the freedom of humanity, their soul and spirit is alive in Kurdistan. They just look different. So, I'm happy to say this, because that's why I always have my difficulties to say Kurdish revolution, because it's continuation of other revolutions, but it's now happening in Kurdistan and led by the Kurds. So this is the difference. So to make it concrete where it's happening, because it's not abstracting what we are talking about. And I would say, well, concretely, it's in Kurdistan and led by the Kurds. But there you will find the Russian Revolution, the revolution of Marx, of Lenin, of Rosa Luxemburg. You will find thousands of the achievements of all those who sacrificed their life for humanity, for equality and peace and freedom of the societies. So that's why when you read Öcalan's books, and I would suggest all of them who are busy with the Kurdish issue to read the 5 volumes of Öcalan, because in all those 5 volumes you will find all the names, beginning with the Sumerians, and then with Jesus, with Muhammad, with Abraham, Moses, and then continuing to the modern struggles of the 19th, 20th century. So that's why I would suggest for better understanding to read Öcalan's books.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for a broad-ranging discussion, very informative. Do you have any last words for us?
I think it's important now to show color in politics, every support will becoming, you will become the feedback of the support for the Kurds. If we can break the crisis of capitalist modernity in Middle East, then I think it will be also for the benefits of all those who really don't want to live in the system of capitalism, which is the cause of all problems we're facing in different forms in our daily lives. And Kurdistan becoming a small hope, and supporting this in the critical region of the world, Middle East, can become a central, play a central role in showing the capitalist system that alternative is possible. So that's the time we are passing now, particularly through the pandemic. I sometimes have the feeling we are facing a biological warfare. So the states are using this to cut all the civil rights we fought for them once. And so I would say we are sitting all in the same boat, and we all became affected by the crisis of the capitalist system. Now is the time to fight back by creating the alternatives. And we made some example, we experimented some in Kurdistan very successfully. And by supporting this, I would say, internationalist model, it can become a new wave of alternative, that a better world is possible.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I thank you.